Who are we listening to, Chris?
Shh.
Sorry.
Always held so much to help your friend.
With me.
Maybe if you saw the pain they see, you could be my only friend. If maybe you just shave off the bed when you're hanging around the door, and if you will step outside for a second, well, let me tell you something now, you're never gonna knock me down. So fly away to the next bar down the street. Speedway Tavern. Speedway Tavern. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. What's the news today? Have a drink, have your say. All opinions here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Webby, GA, and Matt are here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your say.
Good evening and welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Now, as you know, I like to start these things off usually with some sort of idiotic diatribe, and today's no exception. I was thinking about this on the way home from work tonight. It's just ironic, isn't it? If the Speedway season had started, I don't think we would have had one round-off meeting. Only in Speedway.
So true.
Good evening, gentlemen. In various parts of Birmingham, Solihull, and the Isle of Wight, we have no.
No, he's not on. He's not in the Isle of Wight.
No, I don't live on the Isle of Wight. I live just outside Oxford.
It's not as far away as I thought.
No,
but anyway, we have in his studio, Webby.
Hello.
We got Matt.
Good evening.
Myself and Barry Bishop from the Isle of Wight Warriors, currently in Oxford. Fantastic. So, first thing to say to everybody, Chris, if you could let everybody know how they can join in, asking questions and just joining in however they feel like.
Okay, so if you're on Facebook, it's quite easy. You can just join in via the shout box. We're on various groups and pages this evening on all good Speedway shows and Speedway pages and groups. We're also on YouTube, so for you YouTubers, if you search for Speedway Tavern, you can find us there. And we're also on Twitter. Search for UK Speedway Tavern. There you go.
We seem to be everywhere at the moment.
Everywhere.
A bit like a certain virus. Anyway, first of all, can I say thank you, Barry, for joining us tonight?
Yeah, pleasure, no problem. It's good to be here.
You just haven't got anything better to do, had you? That's the
something along those lines. No, I was asked last week, so it's good. No, I like doing these type of things. They're good fun.
Brilliant. So, for those of you that don't know, Barry is the I presume we call it this promoter, isn't it, of the Isle of Wight? It's a weird.
Along with Martin Whitman, so we're both
co-promoters, and you took over in 2016, I believe.
Yeah, 2016 was our first season, so we took over at the end of 2015. Yeah.
So the first question I've got to ask you is, what's it like?
Gosh, that's a really good question. It's flat out all the time, and you're always thinking about what happens next week almost. And when we first did it, we thought, right, okay, the Speedway season we're going to be really busy with the Speedway meetings home and away, and then off season you just relax and take it easy. Of course, it's nothing like that at all. The off season for me is probably even more busy because I try and deal with the sponsorship part of it, and I'm flat out then. And then in the season, it's travel all of the time and promoting the club.
So I bet you don't get, particularly in the season, you don't get a lot of time at home then.
No, I don't get a lot of time at home, and I work away as well a lot of time with my day job. So Speedway is just one of the other thing that I do as well. So typically, I tend to go down to the Isle of Wight and stay there for a couple of days because otherwise it's just too much travel.
Yeah, it's a sort of singular type of club, isn't it? The Isle of Wight, with the setup there being on the Isle of Wight, and lots of sort of, you've got to get across on the ferry, and you've got to get finished and get back across on the ferry before a certain time, and all of that sort of going on. It's very different, isn't it?
It's really different, and most riders go back on the 11 o'clock ferry, so they do have chance to go up the bar and socialise with everybody after the meeting. So from one respect, that's great because there's nowhere to go until the 11 o'clock ferry. But there is always the extra 40 minutes, which seems like nothing. But when you've travelled for 3 hours, 2 hours, Martin takes about 3 hours door to door, and I'm about 2 and a bit hours door to door. That 40 minutes is a little bit extra. But you know what? It's great. I love what we do and the setup that we have there, and it makes us a little bit unique. And in general, I think everybody loves coming to the Isle of Wight for the whole experience and not just the Speedway.
I think whenever we do a programme, we're always getting comments about the way that you do things at the Isle of Wight, that it's not just about the Speedway, it's about the whole package.
Yeah, for me, it's about a Speedway show, really. It kind of, I worked for 5 years in Hamburg, and in Frankfurt, and I used to go out to Diedenbergen, where they have a track there, and their Speedway meetings are Pee-wees, 125, 250s, Class B 500s, 500s, and also go-karts with knobblies on. And from day one, I said to Martin, we've got to try and, make it more than just 15 races of Speedway. So we try and interject so many different things as much as we possibly can, so that when you walk through the gate at 5:30 until you leave at 9 o'clock, you're entertained. And that's how we do it.
Yeah, and I think, from the people that have, as I say, have been on the show and spoke to us about it, everybody can see that and feels that Speedway as a whole's got a lot to learn from what's going on in the Isle of Wight. So that must make you feel quite proud of what you do, really.
It makes me really proud of what we do. And when we started on the Isle of Wight, we had a business plan of 0 spectators, and we had to kind of, right, what's our target audience? Is it the people that know what Speedway is and have been and always came, or is it families? Is it new crowds? And to do that, you want to have little Johnny or little Mary riding around on a Pee-wee, so that the kids in the crowd can think, oh yeah, you know what, I can do that.
Exactly.
And then that brings their family, they bring their friends, and it just adds to the whole evening.
And have you noticed a difference in crowds as you've gone on since 2016? Has it made a difference? Yeah,
of course. Our demographic of crowd actually is family.
Yeah.
We still do have senior people that come, but in general, and particularly, of course, in the holiday season, we are rammed with kids, and we don't ever charge. We've not charged for anything. So that's whether it's to Speedway, whether it's to one of our social events, any kid that's 16 and under, we never charge.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask you one more question before I turn you over to our master interrogator. Hello, Matt.
Oh no!
Have you got the light ready? It's sort of been said, really, that Speedway is sort of as a promoter, it's a license to burn money. So I have to sort of ask the question, why Speedway?
Well, number one is I don't burn money.
Good.
And number two is I rode Speedway. I did it amateur and I rode for the Isle of Wight, a little bit for Devon Demons. So I've always been involved in Speedway. And then I decided to embark upon a charity year called the Two Fat Submariners. I was in the Royal Navy. I was a submariner. And me and my best mate, we were both overweight. So we decided to make some money, raise some money for the NSPCC Make-A-Wish Foundation, Help for Heroes. And one of the things that came along out of that with Charlie Webster, who used to do the TV presentation, was to a ladies-only Speedway school. So I did the very first ladies-only Speedway school, which was a huge success. It went on to Sky Sports, and people said, Barry, we really like the way that you did the Speedway schools. Carry them on. So we then started this thing called the TFS, Two Fat Submariners Speedway School. And they carried on. They carried on. And then it grew into my first skid. So I've always had this relationship with Speedway schools. And then when the opportunity to take over the Isle of Wight came up, and I tell this story quite often, when I sat in the car, I didn't know Martin, by the way, until we took over the Speedway. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, when you got in a car with someone and you think, God, I really like you, you think the same as me. And and so that was how it came about. And that's how we ended up taking it over. And it's been great.
Fantastic. Matt, would you like to get your grilling hat on?
Just going back to 2016, Barry, when you and Martin first took over at the Isle of Wight, could you just give us a bit of a background as to how that came about? Because, of course, there was Speedway on the Isle of Wight many years ago, in the higher league as well, of course. And, to all intents and purposes, it didn't seem likely that it would ever go back there, to be honest. But, of course, you and Martin managed to do that. So how did that come about?
Well, what happened was the year before, I think it was, so 2014, Kev Shepherd called me and said, "Oh, do you want to get involved in Speedway on the Isle of Wight?" And there's only one reason why someone just calls you up out of the blue to ask if you want to get involved in Speedway Club, and that's normally when they need some money. And I said to Kev, how much are you on the wrong side of the red line? And he told me, and I just said, you know what, no disrespect, but it's not for me at the moment. Just give us a bell, in the future, perhaps we can talk about it. Anyway, a year later, another phone call comes and said, look, and the Speedway folded. Another phone call comes and says, look, could you come down? And we've got this Island Speedway supporters group and we want to bring back the Speedway. I said, okay, that's fine. I'll drive down. I said, no, a guy called Martin Wigman will pick you up. He lives in Loughborough. He drives past your house anyway. So anyway, I get in the car, go down to have this meeting with the Island Speedway supporters group, and they're a really enthusiastic bunch, really great people. But they were, and I don't mean this disrespectfully in any way, we were a group of Speedway fans at the time, We were talking and achieving nothing. And it was back up and down. And at the time, I worked, and I still do, in Germany. And I spent a lot of time in Asia with my job. And I was so busy. After the fourth trip of this, I said to Martin on the way down, you know what? I've got to ask these guys some questions. And if I don't get the right answers, then I'm out of this. And so we went down there, and I asked them the questions, and the answers didn't work for me. I was going to pull out. And I was driving back on the way home, and I said, you know what, Martin, I can't do it. And as he stopped and pulled outside my house, I thought, you know what? But I could do it with you. And I turned around, I said, you know what, I'll do it with you, Mark, me and you. And he just said, yeah, okay. The Island Speedway supporters group had put a kind of a contract in place with the old chairman, who happened to live in Bangkok. And I work in Bangkok. So I went over there with this contract and said, look, you know what, we've got to readdress this issue, that issue, blah, blah, blah. And we came out with a reasonably good contract, a rolling contract for Speedway. And that's how it all happened. And then it was a roller coaster, and then it just snowballed from there.
Do you feel in a lot of ways that having a background in Speedway helped in that sense? Because, of course, obviously yourself and Lee Kilby, of course, at Swindon, and of course Chris Louis at Ipswich, have all had careers racing in Speedway. So do you think that background sort of helped maybe towards that dream of becoming a promoter?
God, that's a really good question. I'm not sure if it helped. It makes you understand that being a Speedway promoter is nothing like being a Speedway rider, you know. A Speedway rider, everyone comes around to help you. When you're a Speedway promoter, you're the guy that facilitates all this stuff. And it, you know, and if you want to have stuff thrown at you every single day, become a Speedway promoter, you know. And it's not, most of the time it's not nice, you know, it's difficult.
No.
You've got to make the bottom line work. You've got to, you know, be enthusiastic. You've got to, you know, I'm super enthusiastic, but you also have to work within this quite rigid framework of what you can and can't do. And that frustrates me a lot, as many people know. But it was beneficial in the fact that I probably knew what to say, knew the talk, knew what I wanted to do. I had a experience of, I've been to a lot of Speedway on the continent and in the US. So I've taken all of that experience really and worked with Martin about how can we put that to what we want to do on the island. And so far, I kind of, out of every 90 madcap ideas I have, Martin throws out 89.5 of them, and the 0.5 that's left are normally pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's the way it is. I mean, Speedway promoters tend to be, you know, sort of the butt of a lot of people's frustrations. I think, you know, a lot of Speedway fans get frustrated, and you know, it always seems to be the people that run the sport, the promoters and the BSBA that get all the flack, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, well, of course, and the other thing that we consider in the National League, and there's 3 teams which applies to, which is ourselves, Mildenhall and Plymouth, is we're not actually, we're associate members of the BSBA, so we don't even have an input into these decisions for the good of the sport that are made. We can only have an input on our own level, which is the National League. So from that perspective, we're almost, you know, told what we have to do and when. But for the National League, we can put our point to them and say, this is what we want to do and why we want to do it. And then it has to be agreed by the full members.
That's got to be a frustration, really, hasn't it? Because I mean, I know when Graham Drury was at Birmingham, he was often frustrated by the fact that the National League sort of seemed to be you're over there and we'll get to you later.
I don't think it's quite like that. I think he may have felt like that because we probably do feel a little bit like that, because there's actually no reason why we couldn't all meet together. And because I feel that I've got just as much good input to add to other leagues, as same as Mark Phillips from Plymouth and Mildenhall too, that could be of value to them. But for some reason, we have our own AGM every year. We did actually have this year a pre-AGM, which was great. So we could discuss the topics halfway through the season last year, what was affecting us and if we could change anything, which was great. So things are changing for the better in some respects, but there's, we're at jump number 1 of the Grand National to make it where we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Mike, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going back to the sort of frustrations. As Speedway fans, of course, we all think we know best.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know. It's why didn't you sign this rider and you should have signed that rider and what, and all of that. And that must be quite a frustrating situation for you sometimes, and perhaps something that you can't say too much about at the time.
You know what? One thing is that Speedway fans are right. We should be listening to them all the time. And I spend a lot of time looking at Facebook, looking at the forum, Twitter, and I like to see people's feedback. And even if you take 100% in and you throw away 95% because it's not applicable to you, there is some stuff that is applicable to you. And I could tell you a very interesting story about a lady in a minute, which came purely from social media, which is a true and lovely story. But regards sign that rider and the other rider, to be honest with you, I can honestly say I've never had that. Even when we finished bottom of the league in 2017, because our Speedway's a show, it's fun, it's great. Not one person, and by the way, I stand in the crowd in the entire meeting for most of it. Right. And at the end, I want to see people's faces when they leave. I want them to talk to me. Not one person gave me the loaded finger and said, God, that was a pile of junk. You got to change the team. They were all like, great effort. Next week, we're going to do it, my son. Come on. and that's what they wanted, because it was the racing was always good. When you've got a team which isn't super successful, the one thing you are guaranteed of most times is close, good racing at home, right?
Mm.
If you have a strong team, you win at home by a massive margin. Some people want that. I personally don't. But equally, you don't want to get hammered. So when you have last two races, last heat deciders, it's great. And of course, it also adds to the thrill and the excitement of the meeting, the edge of the seat stuff, because you've got those last three races to decide whether you win or lose.
I think Matt will probably back me up on this. I mean, that was a similar situation in Birmingham last year, because obviously we finished bottom of the league. I didn't like it, by the way. But we had some cracking matches, didn't we, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some great matches at Birmingham, to be honest. And at the end of the day, that's. I mean, listen, we all want to be, my club Wolverhampton as well. We all want to be, successful every week and winning matches and see fantastic racing. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a balancing act, because you can't have a team that's successful all the time, or you can't have every team in the league being successful all the time. It sort of goes in peaks and troughs, really.
No, I completely agree with that. I think for me, it's, I've been a big advocate of. People say to me, if anyone says to me, what's Speedway about to you, Barry? It's not about breaking track records for me. It's about closeness of racing. It's about overtaking. It's about elbows. It's about characters. It's about entertainment. I don't care less how fast someone rides around the track, in all honesty. I want to see passing. I want my fans to leave happy. That's it. That's Speedway for me. It's a show. It's entertainment.
Matt, okay.
Could you just for the uneducated amongst us, not looking at
That's
anybody.
me.
You're looking at me. Talking to me.
Did you just give us a sort of a typical day of a speedo from that to Barry, from the time that you get to the track, or from the time that you finish the meeting in the night?
Okay, so normally I would go definitely down to the track the night before. Martin normally comes down pretty much most times. I mean, one thing about Martin as well is he's also a big cheese in the scouts. So when Martin does his scouts on a Wednesday night, so sometimes he comes down and takes the midnight ferry, and other times he takes a 3 a.m. ferry. So normally we come down, and I work with banks in Thailand, so I also have to have Thai phone calls. And in the summer, because the time difference goes up to 7 hours, I normally try and do a phone call about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and then I go and put the cones out for the car park. That's my first job of the day, right? And I do that every time. Overnight, we've probably watered it, and we've got the biggest track in the country, and that can be a really late night, sometimes till midnight, watering the track. But we have a good team of volunteers that come down and help us with that. And then the day starts for us normally about 9:30, 10 o'clock. The volunteers will come down. Invariably, Martin will have to fix a ferry for someone. That's normally an early morning thing. Registration will be wrong, or a rider is injured or something, and they're swapping around. And then the work starts, and that's anything from ensuring the track's properly graded. About midday, we'll blow the air fences up. I don't know if you guys have been to the Isle of Wight, but when you come, our track and stadium is on point. When you walk through the door, I want you to go, bloody hell, this looks great. So every week, without fail, our air fence banners are cleaned. We've got 42 of them. So they're all cleaned, they're scrubbed down properly and done. About 1 or 2 o'clock, they start to open the food places to start getting that all done and ready. The bathrooms are all cleaned and gone through. Pits are swept through. Bins are put out. And then I get, along with one of our other guys, the mascot bikes we put out and got ready. And then every rider start to arrive between 2 and 3 o'clock, and the normal pit process from there. And then about 4:30, 5 o'clock, that's my duty done then from preparation wise. Everything goes over to Martin, and I go and get changed and put my Mr. Tumble outfit on, as I call it, because every week I want to be in yellow and blue. and I prepare myself then to go and meet with Andy Haig, who runs Speedway Portal, and we do our meet and introduction, which involves me running around the track, meeting up with riders and mascots and various volunteers, and introducing the meeting as online on Facebook for anybody that's coming down before we open the doors at 5:30. And then we open the gates at 5:30. The pits are open at 5:45. And that's full access. 6:15, pits closes. I have 12 mascots, between 10 and 12 mascots on the track from 6:15 until 6:45. 7:15 parade, bang on 7 o'clock, heat one. And then we finish. Normally we want to be finished. We run quite a slick show, so normally we want to be finished by around 8:30 at the latest. And then we have a group of guys who ride their Japs, 2 valve Jawas and Wes Lake uprights for half an hour, so people can watch that. And then of course it's up the bar, meet with the riders and the fans. Turn the lights off at 11 o'clock, go back to your caravan or drive home and go from there.
I've got a few questions for you, Barry. Brian's, questions. Yep. Anthony says, I really enjoyed the handicap meeting you put on YouTube from last year, Barry.
Yeah.
Caroline Barker says, I think it's just a general question, which is the biggest speedway track in England? Maybe we can look at that. I don't know. Do we know?
It's ours.
Gotta be. Oh, so that.
There you go.
I've always been impressed with the Isle of Wight, and each of my visits to the island, said Gerald Rathbone. There you go.
Thanks, Jed. To be honest with you, Jed and I, we talk a lot, or we used to talk a lot, and I learnt so much from visiting him at Peterborough. He was very generous with his support and help of teaching me the ropes, particularly in a meeting. Where I'd just go in and I just stand and watch how his team work, from who does what in the pits to even marking out colours on the concrete there for riders when they're waiting to be pushed off. All that kind of stuff that you don't think about, you learn by looking and watching others. And when you can go up to the bigger leagues, it's really good.
Another one, one from Craig Smee. As a speedway promoter during the current pandemic, are you entitled to the government money to help with your business?
Well, that's a very interesting point because my understanding is, and how it works is, if you, because we're individual businesses, right? If you pay rates and you own your stadium, so I would imagine that Plymouth, Scunthorpe, Leicester, places like that, that own it, because they pay business rates, then they will get that money.
Yeah.
We lease the stadium, so we don't get it. So where we've probably missed a trick as an organisation is we probably should have gone en masse and said, look, these are our clubs. Some of them are in this situation. Some of them are in that situation. We need support collectively, like the rugby has done and the football have done, to support the sport. So, of course, I may be speaking from the blind side, and that may well all be happening. But from our point of view, we can't claim that grant. We can apply for a top-up loan or whatever it's called, a business regeneration loan.
But it's a loan. It's a loan, isn't it? That's the thing. It's a loan. You've still got to pay it back, Barry, haven't you?
Exactly right. Yeah.
You've still got to pay it back. Yeah. Brian says, "Who does Barry think are the best away fans that have visited the island?"
Oh, nice. Oh, careful.
Now, be careful what you say.
The truth is, the truth of it is actually, I love the away fans, regardless where they come from. I'm probably one of the few promoters that I go to the away fans and take them into the centre green. I get amongst them, but I have to say I have a very good relationship with the Kent fans. We had a really good relationship with the Cradley fans when they came down as well. So in general, I try and ensure that anybody who makes the effort to travel to the island, because we do it every week, we know what it's like, that they have a great time. And if that means me spending 10 minutes with them in the centre green to watch a race, or, ensuring that our riders, because I try to ensure that our riders, of course, go out at half time, sign autographs, or make sure that the kids get on the track with Angie Cooper, to do the kids race. We want them to have a great time, and when they leave, and I always say this every week. If you ever watch one of our videos and it's on it, I always say this every week. If you had a great time, tell the world. If you didn't, tell me, because no one else can change it. Well, apart from Mark. And that's our approach. That's what we do. And we actually had one feedback one time was that no one could see the signs at our cafeteria, because when we put the new signs up, we put them underneath the tabletop, the top. Of course, when there's a queue, you can't read it.
Right.
Someone said, you're an idiot, you put them too low. And we moved them up the next week, and we got so much kudos for that, because we actually listened to them and we did it.
That's what it's
And
about.
it was all across social media.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about.
I think it's one of Speedway's biggest problems, that, and it's perception, and I talk about this quite a lot. Perception is quite important. It's not what's real, it's what people perceive is real that's important. And so Speedway fans in general perceive that they're not listened to. That's the general perception. And whether, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, if that's the perception, it's causing damage.
We try our absolute best. In fact, every end of season, because the thing is, we've discovered that you can work with people really closely, and they won't ever say to you like, "Hey Barry, I think you need to paint the bins black because green's the wrong color." So what we do at the end of the year is I put a thing up onto Facebook which says, "Give us your suggested improvements," and all the people that you've worked with all year that haven't necessarily said these improvements sit and think about it, and they write, "Oh yeah, well actually we could really do with doing this." And even if you get 100 points and you take just 10 of them, people know that they're then being listened to, and it doesn't need to be all the hard things. It needs to be, it's quite simple. Make sure your place is tidy. Make sure your toilets are clean, every week without fail. And make sure that your food.
Are you listening, Swindon? Are you listening, Swindon?
Well, I mean, this is our philosophy, right? This is our. And when we first started it, I used to cut up oranges and lemons every week and put them into the urinals, because I learned a lesson from two chefs who said, I don't want to offend anyone, but when you wee in the urinal, if it hits an orange or a lemon, the citric acid sends up nice smells.
Yeah, it does.
And we did it. We've got this guy now, Ewok. He looks after everything like that. The pits, the bathrooms. He takes it personal. He paints it. We've got baby changers in there. It's spot on. It's on point.
I bet those oranges, they taste horrible afterwards, though.
You don't want to be eating them, my friend. You don't
I think
want
all of our viewers are now going to be rushing to the kitchen because of their own.
Yeah, you watch. When the pubs reopen, everybody will be saying, "You want to get a lemon in there."
To which I say, he's working behind the bar. Yeah.
It's true.
Richard Cotton just says, I love the way this man promotes Speedway. He needs listening to. Stephen says, I've been to the Isle of Wight once when Chris Holder was there and Brian Williams was the announcer. He thinks it was back in the year of some like 2004. Does anybody remember?
Yeah, it probably would have been. Yeah, of course. Bryn, he was our announcer for the first year, and then unfortunately passed away. And we held the Bryn Williams. We did the free meeting for him, where we opened the doors up for nothing for everybody to come in. It was a big old meeting. That was.
Yeah, I think Bryn came up to Birmingham quite a few times as well, during the early years when the Brummies first came back into the sport. So yeah, nice fella.
Yeah, really
so
nice.
so here's a question, and you've answered your favourite away fans. And by the way, Matty said Cradley, we might have to go.
I've bleeped that. I've bleeped that out.
Yeah, okay.
I've bleeped it out.
Okay. What's your favourite track to visit, other than the Isle of Wight, obviously?
Well, I love.
Careful.
To be honest with you, I enjoy visiting everywhere, and I'm not just saying that because I'm scared of picking a club out or anything like that. I love learning from people. Number one. Number two is in general, we're quite lucky. We're really well received everywhere we go, and so we're very fortunate about that. And I have to say, he came in for a bit of flack last year, but I spend quite a bit of time with Mark Phillips down at Plymouth, and I've been down there and seen him work all day on the track. And because if we do a Thursday with on the Isle of Wight, I always drive straight through the night and work at the stadium in the morning, and he gives me a table and a setup and everything. And he works pretty hard down there, and it's a good setup that he's got, and it could be really, really good.
It's a nice little track, yeah.
Yeah. But in general, Birmingham, of course, is a lovely place to go to. I like Berwick as well. I haven't been to Glasgow. I enjoyed my trips up to Edinburgh when I've been up there watching. So in general, I love speedway tracks. Full stop. Even going to Iwade is a kind of, you get a sense of inside you when you're walking up there and to watch it. It's great.
I've got to come back on this because Duncan says lemons. Someone's taking the pith.
Oh, God. Give him a job.
Lisa says Barry and Martin literally never stop working. This is why it's a success. And Ben says, how exciting was it to get the prestigious NICE challenge to the Isle of Wight?
Yeah, that was really good. To be honest with you, I know Peter Waite for a long time from Berwick. I bought my first speedway bike from him, and we remained really good friends for a long time. And he hounded me for 2 years to do this. He kept saying, Barry, your track's perfect for this. You got to speak to Wojciech, his name escapes me, sorry, from the Polish Federation, who's doing this, and he will point you in the right direction. And I said, yeah, okay. Anyway, I sat down and discussed it with Martin one time. Martin said, you know what, let's have a conversation. So I went up to Gdansk, met up with Marek Dudek and Wojciech from NICE, sat down. They told me about it, and they said to me, how big are your crowds? And I was honest. I said, it depends when you come. If it's the start of the season, it's 300 to 400. If it's the summer, it's 500 to 600, 700. They're not huge. That's great. Don't worry. So he said, okay. And you know what? If I'd have lied and I said, yeah, come to me, we have 3,000, I'd have looked a right idiot. So I was honest from the front. And if they said, no, that's not big enough, then that would have been okay. And so we got help from Wessex Marine, from SBS EPOS. We had a great lineup, and then on the night before, for some unknown reason, various clubs pulled their riders out, and so we were panicking. And Mark Lemon from Bellevue was brilliant, put us in contact with the Australian Federation. And then we got in touch with the Danish Federation to get the Dane over, and the Pole came over, of course, and it was brilliant. So just if you don't know what happened was that they turn up with 13 2-valve engines, 500 2-valve engines that are standard. They put them into your rolling chassis of the rider. You draw lots for it, each engine. When you've drawn your ballot, you put it into your frame. And so in theory, every rider from Steve Worrell right the way through down to, our reserves was on the same engine. And then it's a case of setups, rider ability, and how quick you got dialed in to make if you're the winner or not. And we made a whole show out of it. Of course, we made a show out of drawing the ballots, and we went live with that, and it was just fabulous. Loved it.
So would you see that as sort of the future of Speedway? Maybe that's a way that it should go?
Well, we certainly plan to hold it again this year. We've spoken to them already. We're also working with Plymouth and Pete Seaton regards F2. And we plan to have F2 Speedway both at Plymouth and at the Isle of Wight, like a kind of MDL style team event. Because, I've watched F2 for some time. I've spoken in depth with Pete about it. And, I say this to Pete all the time. I'm really, really pleased that every superstar have ridden these things and say how great it is. But unless it's a racing product, it makes no difference to me. So let's get two teams together. Let's race them. And if you have a racing product afterwards, and we can do a kind of a full audit and say, for those 4 meetings, it needed X cost on the engine, maybe an oil change, I don't know.
Mm.
We then have got something to go back and say, well, actually, we can prove that this is cost effective. But for me, the cost effectiveness of it is a byproduct. What I want to see is closeness of racing, overtaking, and action. And if we provide a cheaper speedway product for the riders at the end of the day, then that's great. But it's for me, it's about what we see on the track.
Brilliant.
Which is also why the handicap racing is so good. Handicap racing is brilliant.
Joe Bulmer says, every time my sister and her boyfriend goes to Art Yard Calf, I always get sent a picture of your very shiny bike.
That's very true. My very shiny bike is in the Art Yard Calf, and my good lady Lisa. I also have a Jap from 1930, and when she was out one day, I put it in the house on the side when you walk in, and she walked in and just said, "Nice feature," and it lived there for like 3 years. Since the pandemic has been in place, I kind of wormed it, and it now lives in the living room. So yeah, it's nice to have a Speedway bike, and we do have a very shiny Speedway bike in the Art Yard Cafe in my village. Yeah. And
Fantastic.
I think actually, I don't know if he's listening, but Alan Rossiter is going to have one as well in his pub, because you know what's better than a Speedway bike in a pub? People go there, you put your boots up, you say, in the Art Yard Cafe, it just says this bike is owned by Barry Bishop, co-promoter on the Isle of Wight, a little bit about the Isle of Wight. So we are spreading our word in the middle of Oxfordshire, and if someone goes to the Isle of Wight and they just think about that shiny bike that they had dinner with, they may come and see us,
Oh,
It's a brilliant story. Talking of brilliant stories, I've made a little note about something that you said earlier. I'm going to read what it says, because it says, "Lovely lady Facebook story you was going to tell us about."
Okay, so what happened with that is someone tagged me in on a Facebook post which said, "You need to speak to Barry Bishop." And what happened was, there was a lady in Ryde who at the time was pretty much housebound, and she used to go to Speedway in the Wimbledon days, and she used to open her window to listen to the bikes on race night, right? Because she couldn't get to the stadium. So we have a taxi service, so we were sponsored by Ryde Taxis at the time. So I went and spoke to them and said, "Do you think you could have a wheelchair to go and collect this lady and bring her to the stadium as our guest?" And they said, "Yeah, what a great idea." Anyway, I just put on Facebook, I said, "Don't worry, her name's Anne Barrett. I hope she won't mind me saying her name." I said, "Don't worry, Anne, I'm going to fix it for you to come to the ball," jokingly. And then it went mad. I mean, people bought her a whole year's worth of tickets. People bought her stuff from the track shop. But now, of course, Anne has gone from being housebound person who could never come to Speedway to season ticket holder and sponsor of the club, purely because of social media.
Oh, right.
If she would have been sat in her home, not knowing probably how to contact us, and so she just put on her Facebook page, and someone just happened to tag me in and said, "You need to speak to Barry Bishop," and that's how it all happened. And Anne is such. She even helps us on our shows when we do our shows across the Isle of Wight. We do the main events and things like that. She comes and helps us with that. So from nothing has grown this fantastic relationship.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
I've got
Yes.
another question from
Okay.
well, not a
Go on,
question,
yeah.
but another praise to Barry from Terry. Says, "These guys, Barry and Martin, have really helped my son on the island. This is why the first skid school is a great success."
Okay, so yeah, my first skid, that kind of carried on from the Two Fat Submariners, and basically we have, if you want to try Speedway, we have everything from a Revy electric bikes, we have 90cc kids bikes, we have Pee-wees, 125s, 250s, 500s, all of the kit. And so what's our thought process behind that? Well, our thought process behind that is we get the My First Skid students to be part of the show. They then get progress. So one of the commitments that we made when we started at the Isle of Wight was to find riders from the island, and we've done that, both male and female. And probably the guy who's excelled at that is a guy called Morgan Williams, who was born on the Isle of Wight, has scored his first points for an Isle of Wight team, the Wizards, both home and away. And he only came because of a result of My First Skid Speedway School. So what does that mean in the big picture? You go to My First Skid, you can then be part of the MDL, and then you look to get a place in the National League team. So you have a full progression of student at Speedway School, never done it, to being part of our MDL team, to being in the National League and progressing. So for me, that's a kind of simple philosophy, and it works quite well. And we're really proud of My First Skid, and we do it properly.
Yeah.
It's not a training session. It's a proper Speedway school, and we pride ourselves on the riders' improvements.
It seems
So-
like you're doing everything right at the Isle of Wight. What are the crowds like, Barry?
As I said earlier, at the start of the season, it's 300,
Yep.
and then there's a 340. But you also have to remember, one thing is we don't charge for kids, so
Yeah.
that's 300 that are paying visitors,
Yeah.
and then in the summer it's anything from 600, 700. So
It's not bad for a National League side, is it? I mean,
No, it's
Oh,
not,
well,
it's not bad for a national league.
for us, we want it to, of course, for me, we want it to be bigger and better all the time, and we want it to be a proper success. We try to help people that, that some people say to me, 12 quid is expensive, and so if you need a bit of support, like if you're a student or if you're in the armed forces, or if you're a young adult, we have a different pricing model for those as well, because you probably shouldn't go from nothing to 12 quid the next minute. And we also have a pretty good season ticket value. So we normally get between 50 and 100 of them, and we pride ourselves on trying to ensure we have 20 meetings a year. So yeah, it's good, and it's all going the right way. Last year we probably had a couple of meetings that we were disappointed with the crowd, but in general it's okay.
So I'm thinking, Chris and Matt, and Barry, if you think this is a good idea, I think we ought to do this. I fancy, given the end of the pandemic happening at some point, please, we should get Speedway Tavern down to the Isle of Wight and have a look at My First Skid and do a special on it.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Love that.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
So yeah, well, we will, when the pandemic finishes, we will get back in touch with you about that and see.
Take you for the white knuckle ride you'll never forget.
Yeah.
Just just going really back onto what we were talking earlier about social media. I mean, obviously, the Isle of Wight have done a lot with the social media aspect, and it seems really that I think Speedway's probably been a bit late to the party in some ways of getting involved in social media and using it as a tool really to advertise and reach out and get the attention of more people.
Yeah, I mean, we owe a great debt of gratitude to Andy Haig from Speedway Portal, and also Ian Groves and Rob Dyer, who help us with the social media. I kind of initially micromanaged it because I want every one of our press releases to be done in a certain way. It must be always positive. It must always be constructive. I can remember one time we got broken into, actually, and I was so annoyed about it. I was like, you know what, that's it. If the Islanders want to break into a Speedway stadium, they can have the thing back. Anyway, so we were going to do a My First Skid, and I changed it to a share and repair. Share your time, repair our stadium. And the thing went mad, so we turned this complete negative into something which was positive, and the stadium ended up much better than it was before they broke in. So,
brilliant.
The truth of it is, social media has real power, and we try our best to use it. We are probably the poorest club of Speedway. I mean, financially, because we're normal people. So we work really hard on the voluntary efforts and the great support of Andy Haig from Speedway Portal and Ian Groves and Rob Dyer. But I have to say, we will be launching something in a couple of weeks' time, which is going to be a Speedway first. I can't tell you anything about it because if I tell you anything, it gets copied straight away, and I don't want that to happen until it's done. But I really urge you to watch it because it's going to be fantastic.
Well, we might have to have you on again.
Excited.
Yeah, 100%. You're going to love it. there's a lot of work going into it now, and but it really is brilliant.
Talking about, did you got another question there, Chris?
No, you go ahead.
So, talking about sort of Speedway coming late to the party with social media and so on, there does seem to be a sort of positive coming out of this epidemic for Speedway at the moment, which is the way everybody's sort of pulled together with, showing the different matches on YouTube and so on, and the quizzes and everything. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started straight away because the one thing that we do have with, again, Andy Hay from Speedway Portal was when we brought the team back, he wrote to me and I called him and he said, I'd like to document everything. So literally from our first fans forum, Andy Haig has documented the whole lot. So we own all our content with Andy. And so he just said, let's start putting up whole meetings, 2016, let's see what happens. And then Rob Dyer started to do our quizzes. Then we do rider interviews of me. And then we got the riders asking each other, childish questions. Like I asked Connor Coles, if you had to have a fight between a badger and a ferret, who would you want to fight? Just to see riders in a different light,
What was his answer?
Don't necessarily care about how big their spanners are or how quick they can change a tyre. They want to know if they had a choice of a ferret or a badger to fight with, who would they fight?
And I want to know what I now want to know what he answered.
I think he answered ferret because a badger was too big and had claws.
Okay.
And so that's the kind of thing where we try and be a little bit different, and we really try and innovative. And it's the same with the Speedway meetings we put on. The handicaps, the free team tournaments. We try and be different because it's the only way that we can continue to innovate.
Are you going to enjoy your sandwich there, Matt?
Yes, I am, yes.
No, they can't see him, so it's all right. Your views on Chris Harris' new design bike. Is it necessary, says Eric? Your views?
Well, progression is always necessary. Whether the progression is the right progression, only time will tell. But I'm pleased to see that riders still innovate and look to change the sport and to make it, a little bit different. Like, for example, we did, and this is still open, by the way, I will send 4 Speedway bikes to your school when they go back to a class, because when was the last time anyone's kids had a Speedway bike to play with in a toy box? So on the Isle of Wight, I just said, write to me. I'll give them to you at cost. I'll send it in a nice box, a nice letter. This has been supplied by ABC. But the truth of it is they're warrior riders on a lay-down bike. But wouldn't it be cool if you had something like Chris Harris's bike, which was like spacey and different and excellent? So is it the right thing for the sport? I don't know. But I think it looks great. Does it make it more aerodynamic? I don't know. But I'm always pleased to see innovation. Same as Marek Dudek as well as he's put a ring now in the front wheel of bikes, not a complete filled in, to prevent footrests from going in it, which is pretty good.
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that, so hopefully that will take off.
Mm.
And
you need to put another slot in the meter, by the way, Gio. So.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
It's got dark on me. Excuse me.
Slowly fading away. That's probably a good thing anyway, actually. Mark says, has Barry thought about an upright challenge meeting?
I always think about upright challenge meetings. It's certainly something that we'd look at doing. The only thing is with where we are is the cost of getting everybody there and so on. So I would, Martin, we're certainly up for doing that. We spoke about it, the last year or so, and hopefully we can bring that to fruition. But I think the upright riders, I follow them a lot. I'm good friends of most of them. They can certainly put on a good show, and it's, we have a lot of upright riders who come to the Speedway School on Japs and 2 valves and Weslakes, and they look and sound fantastic.
Mike?
Oh, hello.
How you doing? All right.
So, I have got a question, and it will come into my head in a minute because I was just thinking about this. Actually, I'd like to ask a sort of on a sort of personal note. One of the guys that was involved, as I understand it, in actually laying out the Isle of Wight track was George Major, and of course he's got a big connection at Birmingham, and I was wondering how he was basically.
He's very well, actually. George Major, he was the team manager for the first year when I was there. Actually, the Speedway track was just put on top of a 400-meter running track. That's how it came about. And now, of course, it's not flat anymore; it's banked now, so it's slightly different. But yeah, I see George from time to time. I think I saw him at some point in last year. Actually, I think I saw it also at the World Speedway Riders dinner. But yeah, I see him regularly. He also plays in a band. He plays, I think it's the banjo or something.
Really?
So when we're doing all
Really?
these events, he's there playing with his band.
That's
well
interesting.
done, George. Yeah.
He kept that quiet.
Get that quick, yes. Well,
At
not
least
a
I
band,
hope it is.
yeah,
That it's probably he's going to say it's the bass guitar now or something.
Yeah. He's going
But
to say he's a rock god
it's
now or something.
It's a folk music band, so.
right.
Fantastic. Matt Davis says, me and my family went down to the Isle of Wight, the Oxford meeting. The whole setup there is great. It was my dad, who is 76, first meeting since Oxford closed. Also, my youngest daughters, who was two, first ever meeting. Hopefully, we'll go down again. So that's from Matt Davis. He also says, my eldest daughter was lucky enough to do the coin toss for the Oxford meeting, and the interval push bike race round the track made her night. It's always great.
Yeah,
if
they
it
love
is.
it. They really do love that.
Yeah.
And that meeting came out of about, we try and do every year. So we did Reading, Weymouth, Exeter, and Oxford to try and bring one of these clubs that trying to bring the team back to the forefront. And I've gone to Oxford all my life, and when I went to their reunion, I just threw it out there and said, "Let's do it." And we put on a really good show, and they had a very good turnout, and they also had a great day.
We should, we should have a look at your team actually, and in the hope that you actually get on the road at some point this year. I mean, you was talking about entertainment being more important than anything, but it's quite a useful little team you put together this year, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we're very happy with it. We're very happy with the team every year, but this year, it's a good little team that we put together. Has every chance of progressing. I didn't make, everybody knew how disappointed that we didn't make the playoffs last year was to Martin and I, because we should have done. We gave away silly points at the start of the season, and hopefully this year we can achieve that if we get on the track, and if not, then in 2021 we'll achieve it.
And if you was to pick one rider, and you have to because I've asked you now, that you're really looking forward to seeing riding for you this year, that's perhaps that you think's going to do the most improvement, who would you reckon that would be? Always put him on the spot
but the thing is, you see, there's many ways in which a rider improves, and if I look at young Chad, who improved and outstandingly on the bike last year, he's gone from my first skid student. But not only has he improved on his bike, but he's also improved on his ability to stand in front of a camera, his ability to answer questions, his ability to sign an autograph. And that's what we do. It's not just about get on your bike, twist the throttle as far around as it go and hang on. It's about building them to be, if they do make it and get further than the National League, I think they made it in the National League, of course, as well. But if they do progress, that it's important that when they stick a microphone underneath his nose on BT Sport, Sky Sport, or Eurosport, whoever's doing it at the time, that they can answer in an articulate way and explain what happened, rather than just, it was a great race.
I think you're absolutely right on that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, I mean, do you look at the other side of things within the sport as well? I'm thinking in the back of, what happened earlier with Danny Ayres and so on. Do you look after that psychological, mental health side of things as well?
Yeah, I try and communicate with our riders as often as we can, and we're very open should anyone have problems, to be honest with you, I've never experienced that with our riders. Although the sad thing is I actually spoke to Danny in that week, and about coming to ride on the track, and he was normal in how he spoke to me. You would never suspect it. So, and also it breaks my heart to say this as well, but the same with Tony Dart. He wanted to hire the track with Chad, and so I just think to myself, you know what, guys, we all have really bad days, and there are 1,000,001 people who you can reach out to. I'm one. You know what? If you want to speak to me about anything, I'm an ex-submariner. I've seen it, done it. There's nothing I'm afraid of. You can tell me the whole lot, and I won't judge anybody. I don't care, as long as at the end of the day, I get to shake your hand tomorrow instead of coming to say goodbye to you. So, but there's lots of people that out there that are the same mindset to me, and but I think sometimes riders become quite insular, particularly in the off season, because in the season they're receiving everybody's adulation and everything else, and then of course it all goes very quiet in the off season. They're worried if they even have a job. So there's lots of pressures from many different angles that affects riders, and affects it affects promoters as well, because there's some days when I'm there with my head in my hands thinking, oh, how are we going to get out of this, Martin? And or you're worried about the show I take the show really personally. It's like you come to my house. I want you to have a great time. You come in, I'm proud of our stadium, I'm proud of our show, I want you to leave and have a great time. And if you don't, it affects me personally. It really does. And so I understand what riders go through, and as I say, my phone and my communication methods are open always.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Thank you very much for your time, Brian.
No, thank you.
There is something I want to say. I want to say get well soon, Brian Buck, because he's been a friend of the show. He's not been very well past couple of days, so get better soon, Brian. Thank you again, Barry, for joining us on the show tonight. It's been absolutely brilliant. And good luck, and
thank you,
and stay safe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers, Barry.
Stay safe, everyone.
Cheers, boy. Thanks a lot.